can a regular gathered end hammock be used for tree camping? Yes. The rest of this video is me looking at the sky. If you look at all my old tree camping videos, you'll see that I've used everything from a double portaledge, a single portaledge, a single point hammock, a bridge hammock, a gathered end hammock, and even a 3-point hammock. I guess I'm continually searching for the perfect platform up here in the canopy. When I first started tree camping, I just used a simple single point hammock like this. It was cheap. I made it for like $15. It doesn't require any sewing or anything. It worked. It got the job done, but I wanted to climb bigger and badder trees. So the main concern with a 2-point hammock is if you are climbing a tree that doesn't have a very wide spread in the canopy, then you can't anchor your hammock and have the hammock spread out so that you can have a comfortable sleep at night. That's why the next thing I investigated was just a regular portaledge. It was a single person portaledge that I just made out of an old cot. This worked great, but it requires that you carry a lot of gear, and they take time to put together. They're heavy and they're just bulky, so carrying it on long adventures deep into the wilderness doesn't work really well because it's a lot of extra weight. And a lot of the reason why I like to go tree camping is because I like finding the big tree, and I like walking around on the ground looking up into the canopy for a great campsite. After I tried the single person portaledge, I started getting creative and working with a sewing machine, and I made my first bridge hammock. I built this. I had this idea to build a tube sock over it with the top made of sil nylon and the bottom made of mosquito netting, which would fully enclose the hammock. And then instead of using a traditional like spreader bar in the bridge hammock, I would instead tie each of the corners up into the tree. So this would allow me to get the bridge hammock corner right next to the tree and would give me a lot better opportunity to spread out the hammock even in canopies that don't have a very wide spread. The tarp worked. It worked. It kept rain off of me, it kept the mosquitoes off of me, and it was super light because it was just a few yards of material. But it flapped in the wind a lot, and the bridge hammock without the spreader bars, it wasn't very comfortable because it had a lot of shoulder squeeze, and I wanted something that was wider. I mean, I could make it wider by tying it to wider branches, but the opportunity wasn't really there in most of the spots where I would make camp. After the bridge hammock, I actually started building a double portaledge because I was like, yeah, I want to be a king in the canopy. I want to lounge, you know. I wanted to be comfortable. So I spent a lot of time building my double portaledge and a rain fly to go along with it. And then I took it camping with a friend. So first we tested it up in the canopy like 40 feet, and then we went on the side of a cliff and camped for the night. And the portaledge worked great. I took it on a bunch more trips, but it was heavy. I think that my double portaledge weighed like 20 pounds with everything included. That's rain fly and everything. It was a little under, but still super heavy and super bulky. I needed to carry my huge expedition pack, which I hated, whenever I went out into the trees, and I didn't usually hike very far. So that was designated for my super big climbs where, you know, one day I might be hiking out in the woods and I come across this monster tree and I'm like, I need to camp in this. And then that's when I would start planning, and I would get my double portaledge, and then, you know, I would have a destination in mind so I could just beeline it straight to the tree and set up my double portaledge and just chill there for the day or for the whole night and, you know, have a place to set all my gear and cook up in the canopy really easy. It was good. I liked it, but again, doesn't work well if I want to go on a big adventure, like, you know, a long distance bike packing adventure with friends, or even hiking on the Superior hiking trail up north. It's just too heavy and too bulky. After I got tired of carrying around the double Portaledge, that's when I invested in a bat hammock. Now, I did a review video on it, and it's been featured in a lot of my climbing videos because it's a great hammock. You know, the price is great for what you get, and it has a cone tarp. I mean, it's made for climbing. You can climb up a straight tree with zero spread in the canopy, and you'll still always find a spot to hang it because you can just hang it off the main shaft, and you don't have to worry about finding a wide spread to get a comfortable sleep. You just clip it. It's easy to hang because you just clip it to the tree and crawl in, and there you go. You're ready for bed. You know, I had a few gripes about it, like the spreader poles, they pop out, but there's a bunch of people online have came up with fixes for that. My main concern was when I started really getting into bike packing, like I have this past 2 years. It was my main form of it was my main solo shelter. So I found for bike packing, it was still really heavy and really bulky. I ended up just kind of looking for different options. I mean, I love the bat hammock. It's comfortable, but I wanted something that I could just roll up and put in the rear pack of my bike packing gear and just go out with some friends and not worry about carrying a 6-pound hammock. You know, I wanted something more in like the 1 pound or under range. And that's how right now I've come full circle. I'm back in a gathered end hammock. After years of building hammocks and tarps and learning how to use my sewing machine, I decided that I wanted to build a traditional hammock and see if maybe I did it wrong the first time. Because the first time that I made my hammock, you know, the first hammock that I used in the canopy, I felt like I was always falling out of it, and it just led to a stressful sleep because, you know, I'm hanging way up in the sky. I don't want to be falling out of my hammock while I'm sleeping. But so I built this gathered in hammock, and I actually I built a system in our spare bedroom so that I could hang it, and I slept in it for like 3 weeks straight every single night, and I loved it. And so that's when I decided that I was going to do it the proper way, and I was going to build an underquilt because I've heard all of these high and mighty things about underquilts. This would be lighter than the sleeping pads that I was bringing, so I would cut weight there, and with my sewing skills it would be relatively cheap. But of course I needed a tarp then, so I made a large sil nylon hex tarp, and I took it backpacking just to give it a real test, bike packing, and it worked fantastic. We had a little sprinkle that night. I slept like a rock. You know, I think my whole system, including the 2 underquilts, my hammock, and the tarp, it definitely weighs under 4 pounds. I don't have an exact weight, but I love it. But as far as tree camping goes, it works. It still requires that I find a wide spread up in the canopy. This might mean either camping lower to the ground so that I can, you know, anchor my hammock between 2 trees. Because if you camp too high and you anchor between 2 trees, then that's a lot of leverage on the trees, and they'll bend, and you could potentially break stuff and have trees falling down on you. You don't want that. It's probably pretty unlikely, but if I'm anchoring between 2 trees like I am here, I usually try to stay under 40 feet, depending on the height of the tree. If I'm in a big, you know, like cottonwood, which has a wide spread, it can be a little more complicated. I mean, I still prefer bringing like a Portaledge or the bat hammock just because it's so much easier to hang, but you can get by with a regular gathered end hammock. I guess the one and only gripe about traditional hammocks like this, where you have to have 2 anchor points, is hanging a tarp. You know, with a Portaledge and a bat hammock, A tarp, you can just drop it over the top and then cinch it under the bottom. You don't have to worry about anchoring it to anything, which can be very problematic if, you know, we're hanging out in the canopy and it's 40 feet down to the ground. The problem with that can be wind. The material on the tarp is usually loose, and wind will rattle it and make it really loud. So even that isn't the best option, but it's even harder to set up a tarp for just a regular 2-point hammock, like a bridge hammock or a gathered end hammock. It can be done, so there's options. So, you know, set your ridgeline anchor points along the hammock like you usually would, and then what you can do is bring some just like dry bags or small sacks and tie it to each of the tie out points and put rocks in it. You know, that would make the tarp hang, and it would hug the hammock, and the weight of the rocks or the sticks or whatever you use to tie to the ends of the tarp would keep the tarp hanging below the hammock. So if it was raining or sprinkling, you know, it would at least keep you dry. But if there was a high wind, it's going to be flying all over the place. That's not the best option. The other option is you can tie like a sliding X between the 2 points, and between the 2 points of your tarp on the corners of the bottom of your tarp on each side. So make 2 sliding X's and tie each of the sliding X to a tree or a nearby tree. This requires, of course, a lot more climbing around, but you know, it's better than nothing. The tarp solution is best corrected by just camping in weather where you don't need a tarp, because to be honest, tree climbing sucks when it's raining. Everything gets wet. It's hard to keep your gear dry, and my solution to a tarp is just go camping when there's no rain in the forecast. Always have one just in case, but I mean, dude, tree camping in the rain is probably dumb too, because then you gotta worry about lightning. But just, you know, why not? Why not just use the forecast? So that's how I've come full circle, from a gathered end hammock through single portaledge to a bridge hammock to a double portaledge to a bat hammock and back to a gathered end hammock. I hope this video was informative and you guys enjoyed the information that I shared with you. Goodbye and be safe.